with the beat, let the rhythm ignite. Step into motion, here is singing.
This looks closer to an ordinary anime shot than a lip-sync demo. The singer starts seated, stands, walks to the window, and the view cuts outside the glass while the song continues. I did not begin with this result. I started with a conservative shoulder-up test, then kept widening the question: how much motion, camera movement, and scene change could H3 handle before the character broke? The music came from MiniMax AI's MiniMax Music 3 model. The video used MiniMax AI's MiniMax H3 running locally with a pruned INT8 Ref 2VA stack. Each 8-second test ran on one RTX 3090 at 768 by 448, 24 frames per second, 20 steps, and seed 1947. The final mux used the selected Music 3 audio. The first useful 2D test used an 8-second interval that was almost entirely ordinary English singing. The words begin about 14/100ths of a second after the clip starts. The character, camera, studio background, line work, and stylized mouth all remain stable. In human audiovisual review, the lip sync appeared to function without visible breakdown. The first useful 2D gate used an 8-second interval that was almost entirely ordinary English singing. The words begin about 14/100ths of a second after the clip starts. The character, camera, studio background, line work, and stylized mouth all remain stable. Human audiovisual review judged the lip sync to be functioning without visible breakdown.
Build it slowly, make it clear. Every change is visible here. Build it slowly, make it clear.
The important limitation was not the mouth, it was the performance. Head and shoulder movement stayed noticeably restrained. So I treated lip sync function, character integrity, and performance expression as 3 separate questions. This clip passed the first 2, while motion became the next variable to test. Next, I changed the source music. Music 3 generated a requested 132 BPM energetic pop rock track with an adult female English vocal. I kept the anime reference and H3 generation settings matched without strengthening the motion instruction. But the song, arrangement, phrasing, and requested tempo all changed together. So this compares 2 sources with different energy levels. It is not a BPM-only experiment.
With the beat, let the rhythm ignite. Step into motion, here is singing. With the beat, let the rhythm ignite.
The increase was visible but modest. Median mouth region change rose about 27%, upper head change about 16%, and occasional shoulder changes became larger. The longest near-static interval fell from about 0.29 seconds to 0.17. Human review agreed that the singer moved more, but still looked restrained rather than concert-like. For the decisive test, I held the upbeat audio file, reference image, seed, model stack, frame count, and sampling settings fixed. The main change was a tightly bounded motion prompt. It asked for rhythmic head nods, small side-to-side movement, shoulder sway, gentle torso shifts, and expression changes. It also prohibited hands, extreme poses, cuts, camera motion, and shifts in style or identity.
With the beat, let the rhythm ignite. Step into motion, here is singing. With the beat, let the rhythm ignite. Step into motion, here is singing.
This time, the difference was much larger. Compared with the baseline, median pixel change between adjacent frames rose to 3.4 times the baseline across the full frame, 3.7 times in the upper head, 3.2 times around the mouth and lower face, and almost 4 times across the torso and shoulders. By contrast, the mean change in the background control stayed near 1.02 times. That supports character motion rather than a moving camera or changing background. Those numbers are only screening evidence, not a sync score. The important finding is narrower. Sampled frames preserved the tested anime identity, framing, mouth, and jaw. Human review also found the perceived lip sync acceptable with the stronger motion. A PC Watch article inspired this follow-up. I built a new full-body reference of the same original character and kept the upbeat audio, seed, resolution, frame count, steps, and H3 stack matched. First, I used a fixed wide camera. Then I kept the body action wording and added tracking, a small arc, and a mild dolly in.
Move with the beat, let the rhythm ignite. Step into motion, here is singing. Move with the beat, let the rhythm ignite. Step into motion, here is singing.
The fixed camera version walked and swung its arms without an obvious visual breakdown, although the turn was weak and the steps felt somewhat in place. The moving camera version went much farther than the requested subtle arc, circling toward a rear view and then pushing in. Identity and cell style held, with no obvious limb fusion in sampled frames. But the turn felt slightly unnatural in human review. The face disappeared briefly, and the studio background reconstructed a new door and exit sign. All three follow-up clips decoded as 8 seconds and 192 frames. Each final mux had 0 milliseconds of measured audio lag and a waveform correlation of about 0.9946 with the selected source. Those checks support that the chosen audio was carried through. They do not measure lip sync accuracy, pose quality, or camera correctness. The full-body results suggested that the straight-on starting pose was limiting the test, so I made a new first frame with the same singer already seated beside a window. The 8-second timeline asked her to sing while seated, rise, walk to the glass, and at 5.6 seconds cut to a camera outside the window.
Move with the beat, let the rhythm ignite. Step into motion, here is singing.
H3 followed the sequence, but not the exact timing. She began rising at about 2.1 seconds, reached the window, and cut outside at 4.583 seconds, about 1 second early. Still, the chair, window frame, interior wall, city reflection, identity, clothing, and seal style remained coherent. We found no obvious body or reflection breakdown in sampled frames, and overall audiovisual review described it as ordinary animation. The conclusion changed. The early shoulder-up clips showed that H3 could preserve a cel-anime singer and produce functional singing-like mouth movement. They did not reveal its motion ceiling. In these additional 8-second samples, H3 also handled full-body movement, an aggressive camera path, standing from a chair, walking to a window, and a shot change without an obvious visual breakdown. The timing and direction were not exact, and one sample is not general proof. But for this character and audio, the demonstrated motion range extended much farther than the first test suggested.
Move with the beat, let the rhythm ignite. Step into motion, here is singing.